right, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to talk through really the secrets to great hiring, which is really like coming up with a title for this. I just stole it right from your book, I have to say, Dustin. But I'm had the pleasure of having Dustin Rhoades here with me to kind of chat through this. And he's an author. He's worked in the home services industry, home improvement industry for years. So he's got tons of experience here and is running a $50 million branch of a large home improvement company in the industry. And yeah, without further ado, Dustin, please tell us a little bit about yourself and just your background.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on today. This kind of second little quick conversation should be kind of fun today. Keeping it lax and cool. Been in the remodeling industry for about 23 years. Worked for likes of Pacesetter. Started my own bathroom kitchen company. Worked with a company called Jubilee. We actually got bought public, which was back in the day. It was BCI acrylic, right? What color white do you want? End up getting Home Depot to acquire us. Went and started another bathroom company. Got involved with organization called Champion in the Midwest. Spent 9.5 years Champion, learning how to be a general manager, a division manager, regional, getting into the aspects of all variables of life and getting managed hard by a Jewish gentleman named Ed Levine that taught me a lot about business and jumping in dumpsters, telling me I was stealing from him, all the fun stuff you need as a young manager, teaching you to get up into there. Then from there, left Champion after about 9.5 years, went and worked as a VP at the Home Depot side of it. Got recruited by Renewal by Anderson in Dallas, Texas. At that time, it was kind of a broken branch. Took it from 8 million or 8.9 million to like 20 million our first year, and then grew it up well over 50 million after that. From that aspect, then we went and worked with a great group out of St. Louis, so the RBA network as well. And then basically Dreamstyle recruited me, Mr. Larry Chavez, for about 2 years working in the St. Louis area. He recruited me to San Diego, doggone it. Now I live in paradise. And I spent about the last 6 years here just taking and rebuilding and things of that nature from that standpoint. I know first year went from like 13 million to 27 million our first year. Took our branch from, I think it was like 111 to number 3 in the country. And right now, currently, we're ranked number 3 in the country with Infinity from Marvin, and we're the #1 bath dealer for our division thing in there, or for our basically distributor there, or not distributor, but our manufacturer we work with. Private label some things there, so there's some cool things that in the midst of it. Just a quick run by, wrote the book Dumb Tax. Really, how it came apart kind of funny. There was a guy I worked for me in the past that happened to be an author, right? So he came up, he goes, "Dude, you got to write a book." I'm like, "Nah, I ain't doing that. It's too much work," right? So we sat during COVID and like every week kind of worked on this. Yeah. So when you read the book Dumb Tax or listen to the Audible, like the Audible is more my tone, right? So I think we're right about 6,100 copies sold right now, and then trying to get that 10,000, that New York Times bestseller. I just want that more for an arrogance thing to throw on the wall. That's really it. But the nature of the beast is it's really like it breaks down the process, I feel, of hiring. And I feel like one of the things that people don't realize, right? They look at, hey, can I find a worn able body, and then can I get them out, right? And a lot of times people don't realize that a bad hire in the industry could cost you just in 90 days. It's like 200 grand, right? $200,000, right? So you think about how many bad hires you have in a year, and you start looking at your bottom line and figuring out where your profits and loss are, right? A clean business and a profitable business starts in the front of the business, right? And it starts with procurement, starts with the way you bring on, hire, your culture, that whole 9 yards. So that basically literally 2 years of every week grinding it out, coming up with questions, takeaways. There's a workbook on our website. You can go and grab the free article, which gives you like the 12 chapter basic takeaways with action items on that, helping you just as a guide, right, in your own business. Because each one of us probably have different requirements and individuals and reps we're trying to hire and bring in our own business. So making sure you have the right formula and understand what that formula looks like, so you can reverse engineer it in your business, so you limit your exposure is big, right? So that's a little gist of it. But yeah, we got book number 2 on the way as well. It's actually
Wow.
yeah, kind of fun. So
that's awesome. I can't imagine the undertaking it goes into writing a book here today. So I think I'd be in like the AI tools going like, write me this, and I'll go in there and like edit it. But starting from scratch would be just like, I'd be staring at the blinking line on my screen for like where to start. So
I was kind of pissed that AI didn't exist 2 years ago like that, right? Because I could have had 10 books by now, right? I feel like it'd be plagiarism.
No. I mean, transcribing it or having to like talk, and then it would come out weird. I don't know if anyone would want to read that book. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think this is awesome. So I mean, just a little I've kind of been able to get to know you a little bit, and within the industry, it's been really amazing to be able to kind of hear your experience. So, I think when it comes to sales, like and sales training and all that kind of stuff, from our conversations, it's obviously when it comes to hiring or solving turnover, it's a lot bigger than just hire the right people, and then they're gonna have a success. If you just didn't hire that right person, or you just asked the right questions on the front end, you wouldn't have to deal with that turnover. So I think the first question I have for you is like, some companies that they just struggle with sales turnover as a whole. I think one mistake I see consistently is that it's just the expectation. It's like, well, I'm going to hire 10 people in my sales class right now, and I'm only expecting 5 of these guys to work out the next year, and then over the next like 2 years, man, I'll be like, if I have 2 of them. And that's just the now expectation that they've kind of walked into. It's like, well, that's just the nature of commission sales, or it's just the nature of home improvement sales. So let's talk about that for a minute here. I mean, like, why do sales reps turn over, and like, what can you help solve some of that problem on the front end?
Yeah. I mean, without giving a lot of the book away, but because I want you to go buy it, because again, I need that New York Times bestseller. Just kidding. But the purpose is it starts with understanding your why in your business, right? And I know that the word why is loosely termed, right? Simon did a great job basically putting that find your why thing. One of the hardest things I ever had to do, and I tell you what, if you've never done this before, I highly challenge you, right? So you grab an iPad or an iPhone and set it up in front of you, and in 15 seconds, say what your why is. That is harder and more difficult than you ever thought, right? Especially if you're going to share it with people. So you put it in front of a group and you share it. It's tough, right? So you got to do the same thing with your when you're hiring for whatever position you're hiring in your business, right? I treat it the same way as an office manager, as an ops manager, as basically a sales rep, a sales manager, a leader, whatever it might be, right? You got to figure out, who is it? Fast forward 6 months from now, this person's in your business. What does that look like? Can you see them growing with the business? Do you see them as a short-term fix? What is it that really you're looking to accomplish, right? We know at the end of the day, we always say customer experience, but really, yeah, it's customer experience is a big deal, but driving profit, right? I had a guy that I worked with at Chan for many years. He always says, are they a Morehouse or are they a par house, right? Meaning basically they sell everything right at the bottom line they can sell it for because they're trying to find the cheapest price, or do they sell with value, right? So there's 2 different types of people there. But again, so it's like really trying to find the right personality, right? Because I think really it stems in a couple of things, right? You got to find somebody that's capable, right? Capability is probably what you're trying to find, right? In an interview process, you're trying to figure out that capability side of it, making sure that the person I'm looking at across the table, right? And, it's not just asking them the standard basic, interview questions that your HR department gives you if you got an HR department. If not, what you made up because you asked it 15 years ago, whatever things you're doing, right? It's about asking questions that are testing the behaviors of that individual to see if it's in alignment with your group, right? Do you have a problem showing up on a Monday from 9 to noon? Do you have a problem showing up every day for basically your first 90 days from this time to this time, right? Is there anything to keep you from coming to work on a day-to-day basis, right? Like the basic questions, right? You have proper transportation, all those fun little equations, what you call disqualifying, right? Realistically, if you're playing it right, that should be done before you even set them down in front of you. But I believe that interviews a lot of the time should be face-to-face. And the reason why, people have behavioral patterns, right? And I'm trying to see, number one, if I can trust this person, right? Because you got to figure if I'm going to go trust you with, let's say average lead is if you're killing it, $200 a lead. If you're, pretty average nowadays, about $500 a lead, right? If you're really crapping the bed on marketing and you're 20-25%, right, you're probably like, $800 to $1,500 a lead, and you're praying every time a lead goes out the door, somebody sells it, right? So a lot of that comes and stems from your people, right? And it's understanding not only the people you hire, but how they're going to fit in. A lot of us, we try to find, or in the past, one of the mistakes I found is I always try to find that next big hitter, right? I need the next Michael Jordan, the next Kobe Bryant, the next basically whoever basically is, Derek Jeter. I need the guys that are freaking slaying it out there because they're going to make my life so easier. Well, if you ever had those guys, right? That's where the old term 20% of people make 80% of the income comes in, because you're focusing on that. And yeah, they might make money, but what you'll find a lot of times, they're the biggest poison in your business. They fight your back end, they fight your production, they got entitlement, they got God syndrome, right? Thinking that their stuff doesn't stink. And it's hard as hell to build a staff around them because you've created that prima donna environment. So you got to think about not only the person you're hiring, but how do they fit within your culture? And are they capable, right? Capability is that first thing, right? That's number one. Number two is retreads. Let's talk about retreads, right? A lot of us think that, hey, I want to hire somebody that came from the industry, right? They came from the industry because, they come from the industry and I sell windows and they sold windows. Hey, they're going to understand enough, which is going to speed the learning curve up, right? And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes people make. Not saying you can't find that diamond in the rough that can conform to your business and change, but if you're thinking that's the solvent to your problems, it's probably going to train wreck your business. And the reason it's going to train wreck your business is because they're going to come in, and if they had success in their last business and then they're crapping the bed in your business, they're going to blame you and your business, right? When they might be following the process of the old company, not following your current process, which is taking you off course, right? So then you become held hostage to changing your whole reason you built your business, right? And if you're changing your business for one individual, think about it. What's the strength of your business, right? As my vision, mission, value statement, is that right? And I always love, they say, it's like, don't change the goal, maybe change the plan. But the people, if you're allowing the people to change the plan without strategic thinking, that's probably a big mistake, right? And then so the next thing about that, as far as the retreads are, if you retread somebody, you need to go back and you need to test their behaviors, right? So that, checking references, which I think is live reports anyways, because you're never going to get me a bad reference. But you can try to get behavioral things out of people. They're not going to tell you if they got fired or things like that, but I can test behaviors, right? Let me ask you, when you test a behavior, like say in an interview, if I'm testing a retread, right, I might ask these couple questions. I'm like, hey, Sean, let me ask you a question, right? What was the most favorite place you worked at? What was that? And they'll tell me, what did you like the most about working there? And they say, the freedom, this, and this. Great, right? Now, who was your supervisor over there? Well, it was XYZ. Okay. Well, when I call XYZ and I ask them, what's your biggest strengths, what are they going to tell me? Well, they're going to blab that left and right. Duke's confidence kicking in, right? Now, when I call them and ask them what's your biggest areas of improvement or things you need to work on, what are they going to share with me there? That's a humbling question. And one of the humbling questions about that is you'll see if they're going to tell you the truth or they're going to grow, right? And if they're not willing to grow, that tells you, number one, they're probably not coachable, right? So it's a great way, real quick, to find out if they're coachable. And if they're not coachable and everyone thinks they already got it all figured out, basically you're as good as you're going to get. The only thing you're doing at this point is you're declining and you're not inclining. Think about it with AI and all the things we've done. If you do what you've always gotten, you get what you've always had. So if they're closing XYZ at their bed, just realize it's going to be worse when you bring them in. Okay. And new managers, hey, I want you to hear, just take it and go. Right. That's dangerous too. I mean, it's good if they've got a good proven background, but they have a good proven background of what they did before, maybe not your business. I think every business, that's why it's so hard to say, is there a blanket thing? There's not. Like people that have asked me for help in their business, I'm like, well, let's learn about your business first, because you can't fix something until you know how it operates. And then let's reverse engineer and figure the right person we need to. So if I'm looking at a DISC profile, and I do believe in DISC, it's not everything, but are they I leaning D, D leaning I? Are they basically like an S, a C? Where are they setting at on that category? Because that really tells you a story behind a story, right? And you shouldn't use it as a precursor to get them in for an interview because you're wasting $100 or $120. Those things are freaking expensive now, right? But after you interview them, then you use it to fact check that what you saw is a reality, right? Yep. Am I seeing what I just saw? Or were they just a great interviewer, right? Because let's face it, there's people out there that are professional interviewers today, right? The best people haven't lived on Indeed. If you see the same people coming through Indeed and LinkedIn, and they're always looking for a job, why are they looking for a job, right? And a job stands for just over broke, right? So they're always trying to find it, but realize that if I can get him to throw his base manager under the bus, right? If you built your perfect manager, what would they look like? And they tell you, how would that be different than the individual that I asked you about that's going to tell me your strengths and your weaknesses? What do you think he could have done different to manage you? And I want to see if I can get him to throw him under the bus. If I can get him to throw him under the bus in an interview, I know I potentially could be inviting a weed into my business, right? And if culture is important to you, that's there. We'll talk about focus in a minute, but there's a couple things, right? And then again, when you figure out your process, like I've tried to go outside of what I call my DISC profile and my interview process. And I tried to change it because I had one individual, and I did a case study on my website. You check it out. It's pretty awesome, right? It says, it talks about I hired an industry professional that had been doing it for 15 years, right? And they were a manager and they came in, they failed. And I give you that whole reason on why they failed in that case study. It's pretty interesting, right? But the whole thing about it, I went against my own category, even though I wrote the book, and I still paid dumb tax, right? And dumb tax is the price you pay for bad business decisions. And I made a dumb business decision because I went against my own process. And guess what happened? It failed. And I caught it in 11 leads. So it didn't cost me 90 days, but it still cost me the training pay, the technology, the individual that was complaining to other people in there because they always feel like they know better, right? So it really damaged. I had to do some damage control on top of it, right? So again, you got to figure out what that process is, reverse engineer it, know what you're not willing to do. A little key is, I'll tell you, if you take a DISC profile, right? And you take your leadership team and you grab out all the traits on there that you want, and then you can contact DISC, you can contact whatever platform you use, and you can ask them, where would my dot be? And then basically when you know where your dot is, the further outside of it's the more accurate, further in is the least accurate. So what are your gauges of tolerance, right? What are your gauges of tolerance? And basically goes, if you're having a hard time recruiting, you need to look at your culture and internal structure, right? I have right now, we just got bought by private equity, right? And we're managed by a different group. I currently right now have 33 commission-only representatives on my staff, right? Commission-only representatives. And our culture is great, so we're striving. And it's because of I'm not hiring the randoms. I'm picking people and won't let them in unless I can predict their culture. Because the capability and culture piece, that's more important than anything because I can provide the right training to the right people. And if the focus piece is there, good night. We'll own that thing. And it's impossible to scale a business if you don't have process.
So you're using, just to kind of go back, is you're using DISC profile and you're actually plotting everybody on that of anyone's on a leadership team, and then kind of making that quadrant of going, you got to fit into that DI, quadrant for us to kind of, if you're outside of that in the sales environment, you're going to say, that's the window of tolerance. You're saying you got to fit here to be a salesperson.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the people coming in, I always tell myself, welcome to major leagues. It's one of the first things I say, welcome to major leagues, right? Because I want them to feel like they want the job. At the end of it, if they don't feel like this is a career and something they want, well, then it's us versus another option, right? I literally have people that I have turned down that keep coming at, why can't I get in? What do I going to take to get in? What do I need to prove, right? So they're trying to fight to get in the organization where I don't have room right now, right? So it's there. And that's even playing capacity, right? That's a whole different story, right? On my website, we did a training course called Capacity Management, teach you how to manage within your numbers. It's freaking huge, dude, because that works within your culture as well as understanding capacity. So there's lots of things that you got to pay attention to. But the first one in that interview process is capability, dude. If they're not, that's what you're really trying to find. Are they capable, right? That's the biggest thing we're trying to figure out.
It's so hard. I feel like I don't know. This is just something I run into. It's like you always want to believe people are more capable than they may be. They even themselves know for that one position. To your point, you have to require that you have to set that bar of what capability looks like for that specific, what you're looking to get out of it, what your current culture is, and kind of set the bar and then make everybody kind of hit that bar in the interview process. And I think there's something kind of pulling out from what you said is there's also an exclusive culture that you're kind of built out of there. as well in that interview process. Like you're interviewing for a commission only sales position. And I think so many companies they kind of turn the sales process, turn the interview process into a sales pitch for their own company to try to get the salespeople to start working for them. So it's kind of like you get one inkling that salesperson might be even have potentiality, so you just trying to sell them your business to get them to come work for you. And when it should be, here's the bar, and staying that way, to almost think of it like, I'm going to pay this person $100,000 a year or $150,000 a year just consistently out of my own account. How would I hire that person differently? Or what screening process would I go through if I was going to start them on a $150 a year salary? That's the bar. And you're going to go through a lot more stringent, interview and recruiting process than most companies do right now for commission only. So
absolutely. All you have to do is take your average revenue per lead, and then you figure out how many leads you're giving your average rep, and then take that by the next 90 days, times that up. That is your access cost you're not thinking of, on top of basically what you feel like your cost of a hire is. And if you don't realize that it costs you exponentially more than you're even expecting, because if you gave those same 90 days worth of leads, because let's face it, you're not going to fire somebody immediately if somebody feels like they're capable, right? But the problem is you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to give them a little more rope, and I'm going to give them a little more rope. I'm going to give them a little more rope, right? And then what happens? You give them that rope for 90 days. Suddenly, like, dude, you're killing me right now. You're slaughtering my ad costs. I can't get any traction. You're bringing my numbers down to the whole group, right? And then we generally let that go. On average, I've seen 90 days, sometimes 6 months, that we hold on to dead way too long. And then suddenly it just crushes us, right? And I've done the same thing as anyone else, right? I can be a Benedict and tell you I've never done it. Yeah, right. We all do it, right? Because we're humans. But we have to be, that's why process exists, to remind us to get back on process and stay with those guardrails. So we take the human factor out of it. And you got to look at each person on your team. They are a tool. They're a widget to get you to income, right? Because their whole job on the sales side of it is they are a top-line revenue-producing vehicle, right? Top-line revenue-producing vehicle. So are they taking you towards your goal, or are they crushing your other goal? The second you stop, you got to love the people you have. You got to treat them engagement and make them feel like the most important people in the world, right? If you crap on them, well, they're going to crap on your customers. They're going to crap on your internal people, right? So there's so many things that go into like the culture piece of it, but you got to treat them as a widget. Right. And that widget that they do is a revenue producing vehicle. And if they're selling the job clean and right up front, then profit falls to bottom, as long as your pricing's right. If you don't have pricing right, yeah, you need to seek help on that as well. But your basically model, if the model's built, they're a widget to bring your top line revenue, which lets all the profits fall to bottom. A clean business starts up front, right? So you got to look at it. Paperwork. I always ask people, what was your GPA in college? I didn't go to college. Okay, can I ask why you didn't go to college? I didn't afford the opportunity. But okay, well, or if they did go to college, what was your GPA? Well, why was it there? Why wasn't it 4.0? And I want to hear what they did, because sometimes work, maybe they were young, dumb, whatever it was, right? But I like to know, just like some sales reps ask a question, hey, where are we going to level 1 to 10, right? Why are we not a 10? Yeah, it's a cheap question, but why aren't you a 2? Well, take me back to an 8. Tell me why you're an 8, and then I'm going to find out why you're a 2. Because I need to figure out how this person operates, dude. I love in the sales process, right? A good buddy of mine says, in order to sell John Brown what John Brown buys, must first see John Brown through John Brown's eyes, right? So you're not looking at it through the prospective customer's eyes. You're not going to know how to help them, right? We got to look at it through the consumer lenses of a representative too. I mean, we teach representatives to put themselves on tape and go through and basically record themselves so we can watch for them record, right? And we become this like God syndrome of recording. Well, if you ever recorded yourself giving a mock interview, you know what your body language looks like. You know how you're coming off. As you talked about, are you trying to oversell the job? Oh, you should take the job here. You're going to love it. You're going to make so much money, right? And then they get out there in 30 days and everybody's miserable and no one's making money. And they're like, what a freaking liar, right? It's best to be transparent. Because if not now, if you got challenges in the business or you got things like that, it's best to be transparent and know you need to fix a couple things, because people appreciate that a lot more than you lying when they start. Because now you've spent the money to onboard them for their name badges or cards, if you put cards or whatever else you're giving them, basically their equipment. You're spending all that money anyways, right?
Yep.
Get ahead of your objection, just like we teach in sales, right? Get ahead of your objection and let them know what you're not and what you're striving to get towards, and you need their help. Because what you're looking for is trusted partners, not basically people to just blab, right? That's you're not looking for, I need you to cover leads. Your whole purpose is cover the leads, go figure it out. You're not setting people up for success.
Well, I think there's multiple pieces in there. Like I think you mentioned before here too, is hiring people who have been in the industry before. Like they come from a bigger company, all that kind of stuff, and then try to work for maybe a growing company. I've seen it time and time again where it's like they used to work for Renewal, or they used to work and they come work for a small company who's got no branding, no recognition, no, they're selling an unbranded window, and absolutely, like they were selling, 20% of their deals just because people were going to say yes to them because of the brand. And you don't have that with the smaller companies. So there's a lot of hardship in that transition, that you can't expect a sales rep who is selling, $30,000 window projects to come in and sell $30,000 window projects for you. It's just not going to work that way. So,
and you would think actually coming in and selling a $3,000 project when you sold $30,000 projects would be just as easy. It's actually freaking harder, right? So I always tell you the grind you get, the basically you take the label off the chest, and literally you made, trust me, I worked for Renewal for 6 years, dude. I love Renewal, dude. I think they're a great company, and they have a great product line, great story back behind it from 1903, right? Just great things. But the challenge is, again, you rip the badge out the chest. And I've watched many people that have come over once that badge is off their chest falter and fail because they don't know how to operate without the program. They make it so easy for you to touch iPads, and people recognize the most trusted name in Windows, right? Now you take that off your chest, and now you're trying to train structure and process in place. And if you're an owner and you don't have, $3 million sitting around in excess cash, you're not going to get one of those dealerships anyways, right? But it's like you got to look at the feature of, the people I'm doing it, are they right for my business? Not were they right for them? Are they right for my business, right? The type of leads I run. Maybe you're a proximity lead runner, right? Maybe you're a phone dialer. Maybe basically there's something in there you do. That's why you can't just take someone else's program and put it in place and think it's going to work. You have to really base on what you set your model out to be. And maybe your model's jacked up and screwed up, but maybe it's right, but it's just, it's veered off course because of people. Right? You're only as good as people in process. And if the right people aren't in the right process, they don't fail. And one of the scariest things is taking somebody from a big company and putting them in and trying to replicate that. Well, now you just tried to make your company something it's not. You don't have the advertising dollars. You don't have this. You don't have the branding. You don't have the labeling. Your trucks aren't marked, right? The things you don't see them everywhere. So that brand recognition isn't there. Yeah. So it really teaches you a lot, and the strength of individual when you do it, to realize that really at the end of the day, the badge on the chest, the people you're hiring, bringing in there, they are your company. Like if I hire Sean to go out, and Sean shows up to his appointment with a hat on and a white shirt with a V-neck, and then you're representing my company, is that who I want at that time? I'm just picking on you though, but is that who I want at that time to be knocking on the door representing my company? So you got to think about that at that way. Your sales reps, your individuals in the field, your project managers, everybody, they're advertising for your company because that's who you're putting your name on. And if you're not proud of putting your name on it, don't freaking do it, dude. It's not worth it. Not worth it. All right.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think I think just going back to the process side of things is making sure that that's in place, or you have a process, or acknowledging that what your lack of process is extremely important too. You're hiring salespeople in on commission only is not going to solve process problems for you. It's just going to create more and highlight them, on that side of things. You're going to get a lot of pissed off people because they're either bringing in their, pre-baked process that they're just going to make up as they go along, which is, they will make one up to try to survive, or you're going to find so that's not a long-term fit either. So I'm curious from, again, just training and getting into that side of things, into the process building, like, you've shared with me like that, obviously you got a sales process. There's a bunch of coaches out there and teachers out there and people that will hand you over the 10 steps to the sale and the one call close and how to do this stuff. What's your thoughts on being able to just take that and just institute it into a business? So I think there's that, like, the cookie cutter approach. We want the easy button to be able to like fix sales and fix this piece. It's like, we just plug people into the process and it's going to fix it. I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's not, there's no such thing as an easy button, right? There are new ideas. I hate to tell you, there's no new ideas, right? I many years ago, got bored, right? So I worked for some of the biggest companies in the country and I got bored. Like, you can get bored, like doing sales, you get bored in management, you get bored in anything. So I decided to go take your own linguistic programming, right? Study of human excellence and figuring out like eye movements, all those fun things in there when you're trying to kind of gauge and pick out, trying to figure out how to get into mastery zone, right? So I figure mastery is a whole different level. So what you'll find is, like most people, they hand a process, they teach it once and they expect you to be an expert, right? And that's why I always love the term, right? Implementation is the hardest thing in any business. Implementation. I can come up with the best process and system, but getting it implemented and making sure everyone's following that implementation, that is hard as hell. Because again, you're hurting cats and hurting people that are resisting you all the way, right? So people don't understand. They don't understand why it's a benefit, right? And if you do sales meetings or you don't do sales meetings, you should, right? What does implementation look like? What should you go out? Should every week be this brand new thing, right? And I always joke around. I'm like, think about it. Like, dude, most sales processes don't work. I've talked to people who have taken on some of the, I'm not gonna throw dice at anyone, but they've taken on some names of some pretty established training companies, right? And they fail and they're doing terrible. And the reason why they're doing terrible, it's not because what the companies are giving are bad. It's because their implementation sucks. They're depending on someone else to come in and build their business for them, right? Implementation is something that is it's a hour by hour, a day by day, a month by month, a week by week, a year by year thing that has to be beaten, consistent, fair, and defendable, right? Implementation is a cheap term to basically cause lack of focus, right? People fail. Representatives fail for 3 reasons, right? You ready for this? If you have a piece of paper and you don't write this down, I think you're making a major mistake. Well, let me tell you, I know you're making a major mistake, because I can teach you how to simplify your business in 3 little steps. 3 steps, right? I give you a headwind. I'll go deeper into volume on the next book, but it's 3 steps. And I had to remind myself of this, right? Because you have to constantly, because we're people, right? We are our habits, right? Our habits based on knowledge, skill, and desire. And our knowledge base is what we've learned, and we've collected all our gathered information over the years, which is why most sales reps suck, right? Because they get into this little habit of doing what they've always done to try to get what they've always gotten, and it ends up failing because they don't know that changing and evolution goes, right? So number 1, you got to have capable people. Number 1 step, capable. Without capability, it's there. If I hire somebody that is an analytical overthinker and I put them in a sales process, their gluttony of failure is probably about 95%. Real close to the remodeling industry failure rate of remodeling companies, right? 96%. Well, they say 1 in 30 business stays in longer business than 10 years. They say, 80% of people take the cheapest bid, had big problems getting completed. All those fun little statistics, right? Harvard joint studies, $538 billion spent last year. You got all those statistics, right? So I got to make sure they're the capable, right type of person. If they have a personality like a shoe and you're expecting them to be the next miracle maker for you, good luck, dude. You just wasted all your advertising dollars, your throughput, a bad closing ratio. Buddy of mine, Dave, basically always used to say a bad closing percentage is the same as a bad review. A bad closing ratio is the same as a bad review, right? Because again, you're burning those leads, you're burning your reputation, right? There's nothing good happens from that. The other part of it is, think about it, right? If I got the right capable person and I provide the right training, the training's there. They go through the training. I graduate them out of training, right? Hopefully you just don't let them go through. I graduate them. They give me the presentation. I would buy from them, right? Because either at the end of the training, you want to sell with them or you want to sell against them. And if you let them make it all the way through training and you're doubting their ability all the way through, cut that cord quick, because you're paying them every week, right? Especially in California, you want to cut that cord quick. We don't want to keep them going, right? So the whole purpose is at the end of that training, if you know they're capable, the training has been applied, they grasp the understanding, and as long as your basic structure works, cool. If not, hey, let me know. But the other part of it is basically focus. Focus screws everything up, right? This is why even in the interview process, talking about focus is a big deal. Like focus drives capability, right? You can think about it. If I'm a representative, and let's say that I made a mistake on a job and I was expecting to get a $2,000-3,000 commission, and suddenly I got notified that morning that I'm not getting my back half of my commission because I misspec something, and they have to go into appointment. Do you think their focus is on that appointment, or do you think it's focused on the problem? What do you think their focus is at, right? Their focus is on the problem, which not only did you burn that rep's attitude, but now the lead is burnt too. And now you burn basically money for the lead, you burn that, and then where's their head going to be the rest of the day? They're going to be concentrating coming back, trying to defend themselves on that, not focused on that. That's one attractor, right? Second thing, which you need to find out in the interview process anyways, right? I love athletes. Like, I love athletes. I love people that come from that because they think through things because they realize life isn't tough. You get out of life what you put into it, right? But think about marital issues. Think about children. Think about life events. Think about financial issues, right? Anybody in this call tell me they've got representatives they hired on that have a bucket of money sitting in the reserves? It doesn't happen. Most of them are moving jobs because of something that happened with something on payday. You know the best day to recruit? It's Friday. You know why that is? It's payday, and somebody always has a problem with their payday, right? So you want to recruit somebody away from another company, call them on payday, right? The other part of it is basically their focus attractors. If there's something going on with their family, right? Could be their position, could be they don't like their boss, could be they don't like the infrastructure they're put into, could be something that happened where a rep or a homeowner said, hey, you're ripping me off. This is too expensive. You could be $500 a window. You could be, basically $250 a square. And there's still people that are going to tell you that you're too much money, right? And if that representative soaks that in, that affects capability because now their belief system is gone. And now basically it affects their capability. So they start faltering. So if you see a rep that is failing, that's going off the charts, right, that you bring on that's a new rep, there's always what I call the roller coaster. Roller coaster rep, whoop, shoots up like a heartbeat. And then basically they're killing it for a month or two, and then something falls down. You have any clue why that is? Focus. Something happened in that process or in their life where they cut a corner, and now they take that corner cut as I can make that my gospel because it doesn't have to be as hard as it is. Why do I have to go through all this to get this result when I did it this one time and it worked? And if God forsake, they do it twice and it works, now you got them off the rails. So How do you correct focus? Think about that. How do you correct focus? Because focus is one of those detractors that can kill you. How do I correct focus? It's by increasing training. If my numbers are falling off the chart, my KPIs are, you don't decrease training. Think about being an athlete. If you guys are coming into a big game, in the last game you barely won, or there's defense is off, offense is off, you increase training, you don't decrease it. So when your numbers are off, you've got to increase the training. You can't decrease it. And if you don't increase it, because what happens is when you increase training and they're in there having to defend their state on why their results are so bad, defend their lie reports, I call resulting their lie report. If they're trying to defend their lie report, their focus becomes on that, on training, not on the other things in life. And if you can't correct them with training and that's not making a difference, get them out, right? Because it means they're unfixable. So you got to understand that process because that piece there right there affects weeds, right? Because 3 seconds of activity affects the central nervous system 21 hours. Can't let that happen.
So I'm curious. I think that I know so many companies struggle with ongoing training, consistent training. Is that I think you mentioned it earlier, is that it's super easy to go I'm going to train somebody from nothing and to graduate them, right? So everyone's got the 2 weeks of training or 4 weeks of training, and then you can graduate them. But then it's what then for consistently training? It's I'll share with you new things. Companies struggle with what to share in their sales meetings other than a positive and a negative and and what's going on. And then the only retraining is just the ride-alongs when you drop below the average NSLI. So I think what most companies, and I think about this here too, is why should we have to, talk about the same process? You start going through the previous training again? How do you go through and make sure that it's nothing's ever always new to talk about. So how do you continue the retraining and training?
We got to figure, right? Although I think even Yoho said, right, basically a process tells you where mediocrity is, right? Process is the form of mediocrity. If I know mediocrity comes across there, and I know I'm at mediocrity, right, because I'm following my process, great, right? So my process creates mediocrity. So the one thing about it is until they perfect, like my team, dude, I can teach them eye movements, basically audio, visual, kinesthetic, basically creation versus remember and all those different, I can teach them that. But until they master the basics, they don't belong. Like John Wooden used to talk about putting your sock on so you didn't get a blister, right? Basically make sure your shoes are tied the right way so you don't twist your ankle. Just different variables in there. I believe you got to beat the basics so hard. You got to beat the basics so hard where they can't get them wrong. If you're doing your presentation right, there's 15 things you should do before you ever inspect. You realize that? There's 15 little action items, many major commitments you need to get before you even get into a company presentation or even becoming the expert in the inspection, right? If you don't know what those are yet, you need to get to know what those are because those are big, hairy, audacious things that can change the outcome of any lead in the very beginning of it because you create the story, right? The other purpose is like making sure your technology is there, right? If a rep is still on paper and you're not using things like we use for our bass side of it, we use like one click, right? I like one click. It simplifies things in there. It makes them focus more on paying attention to the customer and not having to go through and take paper and pads and all kinds of stuff and write it all out. The more simplified you can do your process, that's one of the beautiful things, like where we integrated one click, right? You got basically not only the platform where we're choosing the options, we have basically a commission sheet integrated right into it. And we have basically and it builds a production thing where we also can manage production. So it's one system that does everything, right? So when you're introducing people into there, if you don't want to pay for technology, dude, technology can change your entire business, right? On the Windows side of it, our Infinity one that we utilize on that as well, it basically, again, it's simplified. It talks right to the ordering process. So we remove mistakes. The less I can make the rep think about, the better. But then I need to teach them to master the tools. So training could be as easy as coming in. Hey, let's work on basically finding the shrine today. We're going to work on finding the shrine. Let's master finding the shrine. Okay, that was terrible. Let's start over again. Hey, John, what did he do good? What could he have done better? And then, okay, what did you learn from that? Now let's do it again. Now, if you had that opportunity to do it again, what would you do different this time, right? So there's takeaways in there that they need to be thinking about that are going to really help execute them and to help that take the next level. And when they're sharp, think about this, right? If you ever played sports, did your coach ever let you just show up and jump on the field? Or did you have to warm up first, right? So if you're not warming your brain up or warming your reps' brain up and keeping them, even if it's a quick Zoom call, a little 30-minute, 45-minute Zoom, nothing can be done in 15 minutes, 30, 45-minute Zoom. Basically, at least go over one action item that happened on the last day, have the representative give his live report, right? And then have the team. What do you think he did good? What do you think he could have done better? What do you think you learned from it? At the end of each one of those meetings, are you doing a takeaway?
Yep.
Are you doing hey, what did you take away today you're going to take in the field with you? What was a reminder or takeaway you're going to take? And what's a reminder you did to make sure you get that repetition? And if you're not nurturing your team's not going to nurture your customers. And if your team's not nurturing your customers and they're not being their best foot forward, I want my team to be warm when going in the first lead. I don't ever want them showing up cold because that's why if you look at closing ratios, generally 10 a.m.s to 2 a.m.s, 2 p.m. generally close better than 10 a.m.s in some businesses because there's no warm up and they're finally warm on their 2 p.m. So they're sharp as a nail. So when you start looking at paying attention to trends and variables in your business, it might be different in your business, but there might be, if you pay attention to trends and variables, right? If you're running guys 3 leads a day, look at what your closing ratio is at 6 compared to 2 and 10, right? When are they most sharp? When are they most focused? And start working like strategic and deliberate. If you can figure out the technology to use, whatever platforms you're utilizing, you can figure out how to scale that down. You're setting your rep up for success. But if I put a rep out and I don't control his focus, so he's focused on giving a master presentation, focused on never will I ever decide whether or not customers will or will not buy my products or services, then I don't have the focus in the right direction, right? Their first focus when they get in the house, how do I get into a demo? If I can't get myself to the door, I can't get into an inspection. Without an inspection, I haven't earned the right to basically give a company story or basically a company difference, I haven't earned the right to even show my product yet, right? I haven't earned the right to basically find affordability and get my commitments and ask for the business today. So you earn the right by that process. And you got to make sure, dude, at the beginning of it, hey, are you comfortable asking somebody for the business on the same day? Yeah, I am. Okay. What was the position you feel like you were the best at, Sean? It was this. Cool. You're selling me that since you were the best. I want to see you present that to me. And I want you to close me. And I literally watch them in their best. And if I don't like their best, get the hell out of my office. You don't work. Right. So just some tidbits there. But yeah, it's
no, I think it's packed. I love that. I think there's so many pieces to that. Obviously, just hearing you say like make sure you're using technology, you're using a consistent process, and anything you're going to simplify the sales reps, process down so that they have fewer things to think about and to distract their focus in the home or across the board. But breaking the sales process up into these little bite-sized chunks of getting the inspection, getting the demo, walking through these different pieces, and then going back and retraining. And
you can't, dude, you could train the same thing for like a week straight, right? You can train the same thing for 3 weeks straight, right? Think about this. Let me give you one more thing here. People's behavioral patterns are 90 days. People have 90-day behavioral patterns, right? You ever find that if you're on the call listening, right? You ever find that you could be training on something and you guys are killing it, right? Maybe it's price presentation. You're concentrating on selling payments, and now your business is killing it, right? You guys are going on the thing. Now you change the subject, and then the very little thing, the basically little item you had your brain on, now they forget that. Now they go back to the new thing, and it causes the results on that to go away. You're never done training the same thing. When the boring's boring, keep going, right? That's why the difference between an amateur press get it right as a professional press that can't get it wrong. That's saying if you're not living that daily and you're not thinking it and reminding them of it, if they can't say it, if they can't like repeat your sentences, they can't say it like on the cusp. Hey, give me this commitment. Give me this. Hey, I need to think about it. I never make snap decisions. Hey, I've got 3 other estimates coming for you. They, coming into it, they can't hit you. Hey, I needed to cancel the appointment I meant to cancel. So, this is over. I don't have time today. Okay. If they don't know rebuttals to come into it and they're not always on their toes, ready to go, your reps aren't sharp enough, right? You've got to keep them on their toes. And then role playing is more important than you preaching in front of a meeting. And if your meetings consist of you just going over numbers and shaming them, you really need to rethink your meetings, because you're not going to change the past. You're only going to change the day moving forward. Don't worry about the past. Worry about the things moving forward. And if you don't know how to do that, listen, help. Right? Maybe I can have a conversation with you, throw some things out, things like that. But there's items you can have where you keep them focused on the target. It's there because, again, carrot and stick, or you have producer. There's 3 quadrants we talk about, right? It's cooler, closer, cleaner. Completely stole it from the book Relentless. But, basically, what kind of reps do you want? Do you want the reps that basically show up and are told what to do all the time? You got to tell them what to do. How frustrating is that with basically office staff? We got to tell them what to do, right? Hey, I know you got that task done, but hey, can you be forward thinking a little bit, right? Can you do this, this, and this? If we got to tell reps to do that, then that's a problem, right? Now, if I got to throw a carrot and stick, which is most of them, and they're casing that, are they chased by the carrot? Are they focused by the carrot or the reward or basically basically whatever it is, the little spiff I got going on right now or contest, or are they focused on basically not getting fired? Which is more motivating, right? And there's 2 different types of people. And you got people that just show up and do it no matter what, because that's their personality, right? We always want that people, but sometimes that's nurtured with experience. And again, controlling that focus side. You control focus, you control your business. You don't control the focus, your business is gone.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think a big thing of that, I love even the basic takeaways. If you just hire people that do have capability, if you're hiring people onto or recruiting people onto your sports team, that you're not going to hire people who aren't capable to do the position, who aren't athletes already, that can at least learn how to play this sport versus that sport. How many athletes move one sport to another because they're capable and they have that capability. And I think that's obviously huge key. And then you have to be be keeping their focus in the right direction. And then I think the other thing is if you can set a system up and a process up for continued training and required training as a part of that process and continue to retrain. I think just to the sports analogy there, you have to make sure you're consistently training and going to practice every day to get better. And if you're not doing well, you got to practice even more. And if you're not consistently doing training, then things will naturally just go off the rails. And I think I think you said it here too, is that I think most companies are searching for the person who kind of puts their own carrot in front of themselves, and their own has that self-motivation to continue to improve. And it's like, well, that has to be kind of directed and just part of the culture and part of the system in here. That's like, no, we always go through retraining because we know it's human nature to kind of go off this direction. We need to kind of continue the focus on this. Yeah. So you have to create the sales system so that that's even, a consistency. So, and then forward thinking there too. So,
well, need met never satisfies, right? Need met never satisfies. So once that rep feels like their needs met, or that manager, they move on to the next thing, right? Not taking eyes off that very last thing they did. So, I mean, it's an art form. Management is a tough gig. Ownership's a very tough gig, right? Leadership's a tough gig, but again, you gotta have your little things in place. So you're almost like the puppet master a little bit, right? So you know what string to pull when you need to pull it. See, the numbers are doing this. I need to go back to this string. This percentage is off on my KPI. I need to pull this string, right? Because we know you talked about NSLI, right, or revenue per lead. So if that's off, what are the indicators that are causing that to be off? Is it demo percentage? Is it basic closing rate? Is it average sale? What's causing that? What's causing that to go off, right? And then create your trainings or what your focus trainings on based on that. And what you'll find is when you're hiring people, if they come into an environment that's learning, nurturing, and team building, it's something they want to be part of. And basically, as a manager, if you make that always part and you separate, the bad stuff out, it's good. But too much change in a business is terrible too. So it's just lots. So hopefully that's helpful.
Well, I think there's so many pieces to the training. If you make that part of your culture and that you're hiring people with that training and learning mindset from a capability level, it's like how trainable are you and coachable are you? And if that's just your culture, then I think everybody grows in that process and is more receptive to it as well. So awesome. Well, Dustin, this has been jam-packed full of takeaways, and we could spend a couple hours here just diving into a million different directions here, but I want to honor your time. I thank you so much for spending time with us here today. How can people kind of reach you or get more information about you, your book, all that kind of stuff here? We've already thrown kind of your link to your book here in the notes as well. We'll send that via email. But how can people reach you?
Yeah, really. You can reach out. There's a contact page on the Dumbtax website, which is where we kind of promote the book. Try to coaching stuff, right? I like helping people in general. I think it's fun. I have conversations with people all over the country. I know people in New York. I know people in Florida. I've managed people all over the country, right? So it's kind of cool. And you ever want help or anything, you can reach out, figure out how to contact us on that, www.dumbtax.org. That's the book is called Dumbtax, right? Again, the book is specifically Find Your Wife for Hiring. If you buy the book or the Audible, you get a free resource. So we give you on the website. You can go on there and jump on the top right-hand corner. Kind of helps you with that. But you want to reach out. That's the best way to do it. That really will lead you where you want to go. If you ever want to have a conversation, just hit me up through there. We can, send your email, let me know what you want to talk about, and then we can spend a little time maybe chatting on it. But other than that, dude, wish you your business success. And again, as I always say with everybody, I stole this from my buddy Jim Pruitt. We'll see you on the board and see you at the top, right? So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dustin. I appreciate it, and highly encourage everyone to reach out. And Dustin, we'll for sure have you on here again. This was extremely valuable. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a great day. So I hope we see you all later.
Bye, guys.